शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणी विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. Okay, let's start. Okay, so this portion talks about Rajadharma. So Rajadharma mainly how a king should be there, how he has to, I think little we had started with that. So Rajadharma, basically his main rule was, now when we talk about Rajadharma, the duties of a king are many. So firstly, he has to identify his enemies and punish them accordingly, then ensure that all the subjects in his kingdom are happy, then at the same time the kingdom should be ruled well. Further, he has to protect even the sages who are performing tapasya. Then a wise person should be appointed as a minister, as his priest, just as Dasharatha or the Ikshvaku Vamsha had Vasishta, or Shatananda was for Janaka, or we had even Chandragupta Maurya, advisors like Chanakya, for Chandragupta Maurya. So therefore the ministers who are there, or advisors, they should also be very wise, so that also should be appointed properly. Then all the ministers should be wise, the queen also should be good, because you see, best example Ramayana, because of Queen Kaikeyi the entire story changed altogether and a lot of problems had to be faced. So therefore the queen also should be good. Further, before the coronation is done, water is bought from all the 7 rivers and so on. Then lot of silver vessels, gold vessels. Now it is the coronation of a king, so obviously just as we have a wedding in the family also, similarly all things are to be done. So you can say lot of prosperous things, gold, vessels, lot of donations, charity and so on. Next, the king prays to all the gods, small puja and everything is being done. Then all the 4 main parts of the king, there is army, soldiers, horses, camels, elephant. So all this has to be there because a kingdom is known by its army. After all this is done, next a charioteer should be appointed, because whenever the king wants to go somewhere, the charioteer should follow him along. So the charioteer also should be a right person. He should be very skilled, like Sumantra. When Rama, Sita, Lakshmana, they go for Vanavasa, all the people of Ayodhya follow them. At that time, very smartly Rama tells Sumantra, you ride the chariot in such a way that the footsteps of the horse should not be seen. And Sumantra does that. He rides the chariot in such a way that the path of the horses becomes confusing. So people could not look at the footprints and follow. They did not know where Rama went. So this was a skill. So therefore the charioteer should be very well skilled. Then he must also know about various horses, elephants. That is how to ride horses, elephants, how to use the army properly and so on. Then further there has to be a Vaidyaha, a doctor in the kingdom. Then a person who takes care of horses, that is a doctor of horses and elephants. Because in a war also, if the animals get injured, there should be someone who will treat them. Further, for the woman also, now in those times it used to be that for the woman you should have a separate, you can say like a palace or chamber altogether, if not a palace also. So even for all the women folk in the kingdom, you should, a separate place used to be made. So like this, different arrangements have to be made. Further, the king should appoint people. He should delegate his work equally. That is, everything only I will take care of, it doesn't happen. So maybe he has a group of 10 ministers. So one minister is given responsibility of so and so area, maybe say 10 villages. Next person is given the responsibility of the next 10 villages. So that is all the safety, administration part, taking care of those 10 villages will be the responsibility of that particular minister. So that is equally distributing the job opportunities, equally distributing the job amongst all the people, the ministers equally. That is also the responsibility of the king. Further, the property rights of, if there are any minor people also, I think last time also we had discussed, minor is someone who is a child also, maybe he is an orphan, or there is no one to take care of the child below 18, just as we have minor rights now, right? So similarly, even in those times it used to be there, and it will be the responsibility of the king to take care of such a child if there is someone. Further, the king should be free from all kinds of bad habits like gambling. We know gambling, the Mahabharata Yuddha, it started because of the bad habit of gambling, that is playing dice, hunting, drinking, and so on, unnecessarily just roaming about here and there without reason, that should also be avoided. And one more thing has been mentioned which is very, very interesting, is that the king must check whether the bed on which he is going to sleep or the food that he is going to eat is safe. Now, why this has been mentioned is because in those times what used to happen is, enemies, how they will come and attack, we never know. So therefore the king should rather be very, very careful. So even the food also should be cross-checked properly, even the bed also you must see, nothing should be placed nearby or so. So therefore all this so closely it has been mentioned in the Puranas, wherein the bed on which the king is about to sleep should be checked properly. That's the reason why we go outside also, maybe you go out of town in a unknown place like a hotel or so, we check, right, if everything is there proper, nothing, everything is safe and so on. So this is what the king is also expected to do. And so you see all our Puranas, they have mentioned each and every piece of information very, very carefully. It's not that just something has been picked up from somewhere and placed here, or randomly someone is just talking about something. So even when we call these texts, or sometimes you might feel that all this is just fiction or so, what people are mentioning, it becomes very difficult to believe that this will be fiction, because nothing will be mentioned so much in detail in case it is fiction. So these are all just proofs that which show that so much of deep study has been done before writing the Puranas. Further, next with this the king or Raja Dharma is that part comes to an end. Next you have something about dreams, nightmares and so on. So it seems that now some dreams, now most of us we get dreams, right, and then some people, usually elders also, they might tell you, oh, what you saw in your dream, if you see something like this, maybe it is a bad omen, or maybe something very evil is going to happen and so on. So it is said that if there are a few nightmares that are there, or bad dreams. So what is that? Maybe you see a lot of trees or so going around, growing around you, so basically a very dense forest, or in which you see someone who is falling from above, or maybe you feel someone is very dirty, or very wearing dirty clothes, shabby clothes, someone like that. Or it seems that it is even bad to dream about marriages or singing or killing of animals. Then even if you dream about bad habits or so, like maybe drinking or consuming meat and so on, so it is like all these are considered to be nightmares. Now usually dreams are not there in our hands, but then some people continuously, maybe none amongst us, but still some do get such dreams, and then it becomes very difficult to believe, oh, I saw a dream. Sometimes we also tell, right, I saw a dream, it was so disturbing, I could not express myself and so on, right? So in the next day morning you get up and then you don't know what to do. For some time we are like totally blank. It takes a lot of time to come out of that. So like this, there are a few dreams which we see this way, but usually dreams are, it's not in our hands, but yes, sometimes if such kind of dreams come, they're surely nightmares. And for this also, because these things are not in our hands, it is now, when do we get bad dreams? Now basically if you see dreams, those who have studied a bit of psychology, you will know that dreams, though we say that it is not in our hands, still if you see 90% of the time, whatever you see in your dream, you would have surely seen that or maybe heard about that before. It never happens that we have never seen or heard about something and that suddenly you see in your dream. That can happen, but it is very rare. So usually if you see 90% of the time, what comes in your dream is maybe what you were thinking about the whole day. Again, it is not a hard and fast rule, but still that happens. Maybe if I am thinking about some particular thing the whole day, I go to bed also thinking about the same. In my dream, in my thoughts, the same thought is going to be there, and ultimately I see that. So therefore this can have a control. So therefore a few things are there in our hands also. So that's the reason if you do good things, you think about all positive things also, such dreams can be avoided. But still, if dreams do come, because ultimately 100% it's not in our hands, then what to do? For that, some remedies are mentioned in the Agni Purana. Mainly is Brahmins or learned people should be worshipped, yajna or sacrifices should be performed. Then the dreamer who's there, who's getting such kind of dreams, they should pray to lords like Lord Vishnu, Shiva, Brahma, Ganesha and Surya. Then it is said that dreams that you see. Now, don't get afraid of all this, but still, whatever is mentioned in Agni Purana, I'm just telling you. Sometimes listening to all this, you won't get sleep tonight. So, dreams that we see in the first quarter of sleep, that is maybe as soon as you sleep, if some dream comes, it is said that over the next 1 year, it can become true. Next, dreams that you see in the second quarter, maybe post midnight or so, or maybe during midnight, it might come true over the next 6 months, it seems. Then in the last quarter, maybe around 1-2 o'clock or so that you see, such that dream can become true maybe in the next 3 months. Dreams from the last quarter, maybe sometimes that before you get up, about 3 o'clock or so you can consider, over the next fortnight, within 2 weeks it might become true. And dreams that you see in the morning, just before you get up or during the Brahma Muhurta, it becomes true within the next 10 days. That's why, usually people say dreams that you see in the morning, they become true. This is the reason. From now, from where they say, the mention is there in the Agni Purana. And it is said that, now sometimes it might happen that we see even two dreams, right? Initially we are thinking about something and then something else comes in. If first you dream about something good and then something evil happens, evil dream will become true. That is, or it can be even vice versa. Whatever we dream about latest, that becomes true first. And that's the reason why it is said that people should get up in the Brahma Muhurta. This was one more reason why people told that you should get up early in the morning. Why so? Because usually dreams that we see early in the morning, they might become true. So if you see an evil dream or so, you are in the fear of the dream becoming true. So therefore, you get up in the morning, there is no question of getting a dream or it becoming true and so on. So no question of worrying about things. Now, all this is the negative part we have immediately seen. Now something about good dreams, that has also been mentioned. Say for example, you dream about something like mountains, or you can say good scenery, palaces and so on. All these are good omens. Or maybe you're riding a horse or a bull, or maybe flowers, trees. Then maybe you can even someone wearing garlands, good clothes and so on. So all this is something wherein whatever we think, our thoughts are very clear, or these all fall in the category of good dreams. Now sometimes you can see, even if someone is eating rice or so, that is also considered to be a good dream. Now all this, you can find that it is not so important, but then why I'm telling you all this is, most of these things all of us we experience, right? So many kind of dreams you come. Now most of the dreams we don't even remember. Sometimes you see, you have the thought that is there in our minds, but then I'm not able to say, no, I just have that, I was just thinking, I cannot clearly remember, right? So therefore this shows that our Puranas also had the base of psychology. Today what we study in psychology to some extent about dreams and so on, maybe not very accurately, but then Agni Purana has got reference to this. So only through different examples or so. Now all these examples that I'm giving you, maybe you see a bull, you ride a horse and so on, all this is mentioned in the Agni Purana, the same thing I'm telling you. So the point is, maybe these topics we might consider like it's not that important, it's okay. A dream is something, it just comes and goes. That is fine, but then how much has been mentioned in the Puranas, and to some extent if you see, all that is similar to what we see today. Or maybe you go to a doctor or so, someone getting bad dreams, you'll go and ask a doctor, he will prescribe you some medicines, what happened, what you saw, when you saw, so many questions they ask, right? All the base of this is there in the Agni Purana. Further, it seems that you see someone, maybe a tree full of fruits or flowers, then you see blue skies or something very pleasant, or so if you see, these also fall in the category of good dreams. Further, there are something that we call about omen, or you can say some people call it even as superstitions, but then from where this has come in, this also has got a reference in the Agni Purana. So few signs or omens we can consider. You also call this as Shakunam in Sanskrit. So there are people even in the Ramayana also, they believed in Shakunam or signs that are there. So we cannot totally consider this to be superstitions, but yes, randomly believing things doesn't work. But yes, there are some omens and signs that are mentioned. And now those who believe in this, you will believe. Like say for example, a cat crosses your way. Maybe there is a person, every time a cat crosses his way, he falls into some danger, obviously he will believe in that. Whereas for you, it doesn't happen. So many times a cat goes about, you don't even notice it. Someone comes and tells, no, cat crossed your way. You said okay, and then you go about, right? So maybe you have not experienced something wrong, but there might be some other person, maybe every time a cat crosses his way, he maybe experiences something evil happens to him, or he falls into some trap or so. So for him, he starts believing, and whenever he sees a cat, he will dread, right? So therefore, whatever we call as superstitions, it doesn't mean that we randomly have to believe in things, but then depending on each one's experience, the definition of omens, signs, superstitions, everything changes. So like say for example, regarding one person also, is regarding me. Now we are about a group of 10 people or so. Maybe 5 people like me, 5 people don't like me. So the people who like me, they will tell all my good colleagues, you are like this, you are like that, I like you, why do you like me? If I ask you, you will have a list of things, right? I ask the people who don't like me, they will also have a list. Maybe you don't do this, you don't do that, I don't like this, I don't like your something, right? So now here we cannot come to a conclusion whether I am good or I am bad, right? People who don't like me, they will say no, you are not good. People who like me, they will say that no, you are good, right? So it is somewhat same that is applicable for superstitions, omens, signs. There is no definition as such that this is a superstition or this is something, a sign or an omen, this should be believed, this should not be believed. We cannot do that because it depends on everyone's perception that is there and everyone's experiences. So like this, it is said that whenever one is about to go out of the house, one should take care of any signs or bad omens, it seems. Now what is that? What are bad omens? So you should always see that, like basically when you go out of the house means when you are going out on a long journey or so on travel, we must see that there are no pieces of cotton around, or dry grass, cow dung, coal, leather, hair, a chandala, or maybe a mad person, a widow, or basically you can say like a very helpless, someone like that, or a dead body, ashes, bones, something broken. Now why all this is basically, all this, if you say, it falls in the category of, you can say whenever we look at all this, we feel bad, right? You can say everywhere you see bones, or maybe a dead body on the way, or hair fallen down. So basically all things that are dirty. So all the omens or signs that are mentioned, to some extent, if you consider, they are all going to be logical only, right? And whenever we look at these things, we keep thinking about the same, and then it is going to affect our future journey. So that is the reason why we cannot always call this to be a superstitions, because ultimately when we look at good things, we feel happy. Say for example, you meet your very close friend, before you go out somewhere, you're obviously going to feel very happy. But maybe before you leave the house, at that time you have an argument or someone, our entire day goes bad, right? We are not able to concentrate on what we do, the full day we are thinking about it, and so on. So therefore it depends on everyone's perspective. So all these things, usually whatever I mentioned, the list of things, it might be disturbing. So therefore whenever we go out, it is better that we take care that such things are not there. And it is said that but still now, all these things are not in our hands, right? Maybe you go on the road, you see someone like this, a dead body also coming in, you cannot avoid it. So therefore what to do is, it seems that we must pray to Lord Vishnu immediately, so that some positivity comes to our mind and we then continue with our journey. And it seems that even the sound of musical instruments is also not auspicious, it seems. And maybe if you are going in a vehicle or so, when you are traveling, if suddenly the vehicle breaks down, that also is not considered to be a good omen. If weapons break, now usually we don't carry weapons or so, but all this has been mentioned in those times when kings used to rule. Maybe they used to travel from one country to another, so the weapons that you are carrying, if they break, then you should again postpone the journey. Similarly, if an umbrella breaks also, more than umbrella breaking, it's like if an umbrella falls, that is, in olden times again, kings used to have an umbrella, so if that falls, that is also a bad omen. Then as soon as, you can say, one starts the journey, you should never call someone back. This is something which all of us commonly do, that as soon as someone is about to leave, we must never stop and ask them, right? And it seems that when we do this, it will be like you will wish only ill, that maybe the journey will not take place properly and something evil might happen. This is what is mentioned in the Agni Purana. Further, there are good omens also. There are bad signs, there have to be good signs. They are like white flowers, or you can say full vessels that are there, noises, goat, cow, horse, elephant, gold, silver, fire, umbrella, fruit, butter, curd, conch shell, sugar cane, lightning, thunder. So such things are also considered to be good omens. Now, there are certain other omens also that are being told. Now, all this, whatever is mentioned in the Purana, I am just telling you. Sometimes some things like we don't come across all this, but still, people used to follow all this, so that's the reason it has been mentioned. It seems that a peacock bird, if it cries on the left, saying facing left side or so, if it starts crying, it means that something is going to be stolen, it seems. If a donkey is braying, it is a good omen. Usually donkey we consider to be like a very low animal, right? But if the donkey starts making some noise, it seems that it's a very good omen. Then if a boar or a buffalo crosses from left side to right side, it's a good omen. Cat crossing we say bad, but a boar or buffalo crossing is good. But the same, so usually if you see in villages or if you go, you have a group of buffaloes, right? Animals that cross the road and go. So then that is usually people wait for them. So left to right if they go, it is good. Right to left if they come, it is bad. Very simple rule. Whenever we walk also, always be left, we say, right? Even vehicles also on the left side of the road we walk. So that is, you can apply some logic to this. Even while we sleep also, we should sleep on the left side. You sleep straight or sidewise when we sleep, left side you must sleep. Does anyone know why we sleep on the left side, facing the left? Anyone? Yes, for digestion. Yes. So for digestion purpose it is said. So like this there can be many things. So the point here is, you see, whenever something has been mentioned, so much of thought process has gone behind things. How much we follow, how much we don't follow, that is another part. But then how people have thought about this, how deeply things have been mentioned, that we have to know. Further, if you see about horses, tigers or such animals, then they are all good omens. And then if a jackal shouts, that's also good omen. And even that is in numbers, like if a jackal calls 1 to 4 times, jackal makes a sound, that is good. But if it keeps on shouting for 5-6 times, it is a bad sign. And if it shouts for about 7 times, it seems it is good. Very simple example, usually we tell this even when dogs, and jackals we don't come across. When dogs are barking, or sometimes when dogs cry, we say that some death can take place. So all this can be things wherein even the animal starts crying. Further, like this, there are a lot of omens that have been told with regards to a crow, dog and so on. Further, you have what should be done when a battle takes place. So basically Agni Purana, if you see, it has got a lot of rules that are to be followed. And on the day of battle, when a king is about to go for a war or so, what should be done? About 7 days before itself, all the preparations should start. And what are the preparations? On the first day, you have Vishnu, Shiva and Ganesha. These 3 deities have to be worshipped. On the second day, you have the Dikpalas. That is, Dik is directions. The deities of all the directions, they should be worshipped. Rudra on the third day. All the planets and stars on the fourth day, the nakshatras. Ashwini Kumaras and the rivers. Gange, Jayamuni, Chaiva, Godavari, Saraswati, Narmade, Sindhu, Kaveri, Namastubhyam, Namo Namaha. All this has to be done on the 5th day. 6th day, the king himself, he bathes with holy waters also, so that, and prays for victory. And the 7th day, ultimately the king leaves for battle. So again, these are also rules that how a king should do, what he should do, what are the rituals that he should follow before going to a battle, and so on. Further, you have the army. When the king is about to go for the battle, the army should always assemble on the east side of the city. Now usually if you see in all palaces that are there, you have east and west, east door, west, north, south. In all the directions you have door. So the main assembly on the first day, that is when the king sets out for battle on that day, it should be there on the east side. East direction everyone should assemble. And the king should never start the battle directly, because if the king is killed, then the battle is lost. So initially, first his army should be sent. Elephant, horses, infantry, cavalry, chariots, soldiers, ministers. And all this, after all this is done, ultimately if there is no option, then the king goes out. So all this has been done. Further, now all this was mentioned, once it seems that Rama had taught about the rituals of a war or so, what are the duties of a king to Lakshmana. And this comes in the Agni Purana. What teachings did Rama give to Lakshmana? Rama tells Lakshmana that the duties of a king are four mainly. First is he has to earn wealth. Secondly, he has to increase it. Only then he can take care of his subjects. Third is he has to protect it. We have to earn wealth. Second, you have to increase it. Thirdly, you have to protect it. Fourth and finally, you have to give it in charity. Now this reference, just for your information, you can note it if you want. This reference also comes in the Raghuvamsha mentioned by Kalidasa, written by Kalidasa. Rama also belonged to the Raghuvamsha only. So all the kings of Raghuvamsha, they had this quality. And I will share you that verse also from the original Raghuvamsha. I had read that, just come across that, so I had just written a small article. So I don't know whether I've done justice, but I will just share that just for your information. You can read it. So in the original epic also, the kings of Raghuvamsha were like that. Same thing even Rama also told. And further he tells that they should be very polite, because he says that how much ever you're having a high status, you're a great person or so on, whenever you speak to your subjects, they might come with any problem or so, you must always be polite and humble. Only then the person in front of you, he has come with some problem, right? So where if you shout and maybe ask them what is your problem and so on, people will never feel like telling their problems to you. So therefore it is better that you always address them nicely. Only then they will be able to share their thoughts. Further, Rama, he continues, he tells that the qualities are he should be truthful, non-violent, forgiving. Then he should take care and ensure all the rituals are being performed. He should do a lot of annadanam. Then he should use words that are very pleasant to hear. Then further, always dharma should be followed. Then he says that Rama tells this to Lakshmana. He says there is only one difference between gods and animals. This is what Rama tells Lakshmana. Gods and animals, man also falls in the category of animals. Man is a social animal. Gods use pleasant words, animals use rough words. So this is what Rama tells Lakshmana in the Agni Purana, and therefore the king also, he should use good words like the Lord himself. And this is not only for his good subjects, his friends also, but even for enemies and evil people. A very beautiful statement made by Rama to Lakshmana in the Agni Purana, wherein and this is what, you see, if you think about this logically, this is what differentiates us from God. Someone comes and tells us something, maybe once or twice we'll be polite. Third time, obviously, we're going to shout. Whereas in the case of God, that doesn't mean that the Lord does not curse. That doesn't mean that the Lord did not do anything. You'll ask, why did then Krishna tell Arjuna to fight a war? He could have been good, right? Being good, speaking pleasant words, but at the same time protecting dharma. Where we have to raise a hand, we have to do that, right? So here, what happens is, when the Lord, you compare the Lord with all us devotees. We devotees or we people, we keep on committing sins, right? Whatever, today I am doing good, unknowingly, knowingly, so many things we do. But still the Lord ensures that, if you think for yourself, all of us, if you keep thinking deeply, maybe till date, you yourself know that there are many things that you have done wrong, knowingly, unknowingly. Maybe now you realize, can be anything. But then, what here the point that has to be noted is, but still the God has always blessed us with many things. In fact, you need not even think about all this. What we can do is, there are so many people in this world who don't have even basic things. They don't have food, they don't have water, they don't have house, right? But at least the Lord has blessed us with that. For this, and it's not that we are so good, it's not that if we are very good or so, if we are excellent people, excellent, there's not even a single flaw in us, we'll be equal to gods, right? We commit so many mistakes, we do so many wrong, but still the Lord has ensured that we are always, at least, now everyone has their own differences, but at least with the basic things, all of us are blessed. We are more blessed because we can experience the Puranas. That is another part. So, in spite of whatever is the nature of human beings, Lord always is very much pleasant. He always addresses. That's the reason Rama, take the same Ramayana reference. Even after Ravana had committed a grave sin of abducting Sita, still Rama till the last day of the war, even after Ravana had lost everyone, even his own son Indrajit, at that time also when Ravana comes, Rama makes an offer. He says that even now if you return back Sita, I will forgive you, we can avoid the war. At least now you can go back. Even though you have lost all your family members, you can go and stay back with your wife, you can still not lose your kingdom, you can still continue to be the king of Lanka. And Ravana refused. At this point, if you see, Rama did not speak about this. In fact, Rama should have punished Ravana for abducting his wife. Rama gave him a chance even then. Will we human beings do? We'll not even wait first day itself, we'll go and file a complaint, right? So this is the difference that is being told. Rama specially highlights this to Lakshmana. Further, Rama says that with regards to one's guru also, the king's actions should always please, make the guru happy, the behavior should be very good, and even with servants and people also, maybe those who are a bit junior or inferior, they should never be treated that way. Everyone should be treated equally with a lot of respect and honor. Further, Rama says that the kingdom has got 7 components. What are that? First is a king, then the ministers, friends, treasury, army, forts, a lot of forts in the neighboring places, and territories, and the state itself. King, ministers, friends, treasury, army, forts, and the main state itself. Of this, the most important is the state, that is the area which has to be preserved, because you will have a lot of enemy kings coming and attacking, trying to maybe invade. So therefore, firstly the state should be protected well. If that is protected, then all other things are secondary. Further, a king is recognized by a few signs. Now what are those signs? He has a rod that is a stick in his hand. Sometimes in some kings you would have seen a golden color rod. Then an umbrella should always be held over the king's head. Now this umbrella should be made using the feathers of which birds? That also has been mentioned here. Swans, peacocks, or cranes. But the feathers of different birds should not be mixed together in the same. One umbrella use only swan feathers, another umbrella only peacock. This way there should be no mix matching. So this is how the umbrella should be made. The throne of the king should be made of wood and it should have gold that is stuck in that, gold pieces. A bow of the king should be made of iron or wood, and the best bow will be 4 arm lengths. Arm that we have, ARM, arm. 4 arm lengths like that. This is an excellent bow. If such a bow is made, it is of excellent quality. Further, it is said that the king can spend about 1 year's tax that is there on flags and all. That is basically for the development of the kingdom. Your flag or dhwaja that we say, and other things that are needed for the kingdom. For that 1 year's tax revenue that the king earns, he can spend on developing these flags. That is on maybe on the temple or on the palace top only you have flags, and also on weapons, different kinds of equipments, armaments. On that also the king can spend. All these rules have been mentioned. Rama tells all this to Lakshmana, and he says that a king who follows this, he is an excellent follower of Rajadharma. Next you have the reference of Dhanurveda. Dhanurvedam reference comes in the Agni Purana. It is, you can say, very exclusive or limited to Agni Purana alone. You don't have Dhanurveda reference in any other Purana. Now, there are about 5 types of weapons that are used in war. First is Yantra Mukta weapons. What are Yantra Mukta weapons? That is from a machine they are released. Maybe machine guns you can consider. So you don't have to put in your own efforts. To the machine, these weapons are released. Further, it can be like those machine guns wherein you have to just put those bombs and then the bomb goes in, or maybe like a bow or so, but it will be automatic. The second is Pani Mukta weapons. Pani is hand. Pani Mukta, those weapons that can be thrown or that are released to hand. So maybe like a sword or a big rock or so, they are Pani Mukta, with which you have to use your hand. Like spears, stones and so on. Usually demons, they will all have this. Third category is Mukta Sandharita. These weapons, they can be thrown, at the same time they can be withdrawn. So maybe you can consider like this, what do you call that? You have that at home sometimes we people have, right? You throw that and it comes back. What do you call that? A triangle like, anyone knows that? It's not a weapon. A triangle like shape it is.
It's called boomerang.
Boomerang, correct. Boomerang. Everyone knows what's a boomerang? show you a picture, maybe you can make out. So that I think usually children also they use this, but many
So
people.
we use one ring like
Ring also. Sometimes
like
usually it comes back. I will just show you the picture. Some people we have this at our home. This one. You see at home sometimes we keep. Now usually wood also if you throw it doesn't happen that way. But children when they just throw about things it usually comes back. This is a boomerang that is there, a triangular shape. Some people we have it at our houses also, just like a showpiece we do keep it. So this like this there are a few weapons which are like boomerang also, wherein you throw and if you don't want or you feel that no it need not be released now, it can also be withdrawn. The fourth category is swords. Now usually if you see swords they are not much released during wars or so. All the kings they will just have it. You have a special compartment for that. They will just have it in that. They will not release it very easily. So it is just for emergency also. And the last category that is there is amukta. Amukta weapons is usually you can say you use a lot of force and strength, like maybe wrestling also. So you don't need any weapons, you just use your physical body. And wrestling is said to be the worst form of fighting because you're not using any sources that are meant for fighting, you're just using your own body, which should not be done at most of the times. Using our own body or this, though we have mushti yuddham and so on, in fact if you see Krishna Balarama also did the same thing. But then wrestling is something, it's like the last category. It shows like only when you don't have any other source like a weapon or so, at that time you use wrestling. That is, you have to use your own physical body. So therefore that is not a very ideal form. Agni Purana says that it is the worst form of wrestling. Whereas using bow and arrows to fight a war, that is an excellent, or you can say the best form of fighting. Next you have how a dhanusha, dhanurveda this is, so it has to talk about archery, how the bow should be aimed and so on. So all this has been mentioned in detail. The arrow should be placed properly, head should be pointing down, the bow should never be raised. That is, the bow should, we should not move the bow. Whenever now maybe as kids also you would have seen the bow and arrow. But some people just for fun sometimes we do, right? Those archery things. I don't know. Anyone has done some archery like that? Have you just or maybe seen someone doing that? Maybe if young children are there, you'll make out. No, we have even then. You would have seen Olympics. We have a game, and you see whenever they do that archery, they will cover one eye or so. Nowadays, sometimes people just for fun we do it, but then there are actually rules that are to be done, wherein we should not move the bow. Bow should not go up and down. When you are aiming, your aim should be straight, the bow should never be moved. All this has been mentioned in the Agni Purana. Next, the target, you should keep your left fist ahead, the target should be in front and so on. I am not going too much in detail. In detail everything has been mentioned. It will not make sense and I have to keep a bow and arrow in hand and then I show you, then it will be back then it will be fine. Orally telling something will not make much sense. And of course the quiver should be there wherein all the arrows are there, and firmly should be held with the left hand, arrows with the fingers, and the arrow should be held with the fingers of the right hand. So everything has been mentioned in detail. The body should not be bent, it should be erect. Next, it seems that a noose that is there. Noose, like how when you have to hang someone also in earlier times during those wars also, that is called a noose, right? We put that in the neck of the person who has to be hung. So noose or a pasha is also another weapon that is there. About 10 arms it is in length, and how there are about 11 different types in which a noose can be held in case you have to use that in war. So why all this has been mentioned is in extreme situations, in emergency situations, what kind of weapons should a person use, that is basically a king should use, that has been mentioned in detail. Further, you should have a sword, and the sword should be always to the left side or the waist. You have kings, so many kings who are there, like maybe Shivaji Maharaj, or like that there are so many kings who are there who have always kept their sword to the left of the waist, and when the sword is taken out, the what do you call that, where the sword is kept, I think scabbard, something you call the bag in which the sword is kept, that should be held tightly. Sorry, what?
sheath.
Chi. Okay. So that should be held tightly from the left hand, and then the sword should be taken out. And it seems that there are about 32 ways in which a sword and a shield. Now usually if you see, whenever people fight with a sword, you also have a shield, right? And if you have seen that sword fighting scenes, so about 32 ways are there in which a person can fight using a sword and a shield. So this shows the richness of all the ways of war. Next, now, with regards to property, what should be done when a person dies? What will happen to him? Now, property is something which has been a problem for years together. It might be the Mahabharata times or till date, you see. Property is something, and you will, I don't know how many of you believe in this or you feel so, but I surely feel that how much ever you have problems that come in, but still, or how much ever you are close to people and any other trouble that will come in, property issue is something which can tear anyone or anything apart. And we ourselves fall in this trap. Maybe today we feel no, let anything happen, it is fine. But then, same maybe after 10 years down the lane, when property issue comes in, for other issues also it might happen, even maybe for money matters or whatever it is, for anything. But then whenever it comes to property, you will believe that even the closest of bonds are broken. We end up fighting with our own siblings also for that. And there are sometimes you can see, like I myself have come across a person who was like, maybe the property was not returned. The elderly mother, the father had already passed away, and the mother was very old, almost more than 90 years or so. And she was almost in a coma state. She didn't know even what she was doing, and very nicely, she had not returned a debt. Now, usually nowadays this has become very, you can say, you should have a nominee, a nomination, because later it leads to problems. But then in earlier times, for even maybe 10 years back also, people did not take this very seriously. Now also, if you see in our own houses, you might know, right? You will be experiencing this. So the point is, what I'm telling you is the example. So wherein that person, she had not written the will, that what will happen. And little, like if our own parents or grandparents are alive, it feels very awkward, right, for us to go, now what about the will and so on. Some people very nicely go and ask, but then when the person is alive, we feel a bit awkward. But so nothing had been done. She was a very old lady. She did not even know about all this, and her husband had also passed away. She was in the coma state, and it seems that in the last days of her life, she was being taken to the hospital. She was put on the back side of the car. She was just lying. You won't believe, or you feel very sad to hear that the son was, she could not even sign. She didn't know to sign. What he did was, he bought the property papers. Before the lady is being taken to the hospital, what he did was, he bought a stamp pad with him. He put her thumb in that, and with that he first took her thumb sign, so that let something happen or not happen, she has approved of this property to me, and with her signature for that. That lady, you won't believe that she's more than 90 years old, in a coma state. She doesn't even know what she's doing, very slim or so, just like a small, even like a small child she was. In that condition, what the son felt was, no, forget about my mother, but then I will do this. So these are all cases which I have seen with my own eyes. I'm just sharing. So this is one thing why because this topic has come in the Agni Purana, an entire section has been dedicated, 1.8.2, if you want you can note it down, of the Agni Purana book. In that, it is like property is something which we have to be very, very careful, and it can break anything, at the same time it can even make. So it is something which people dread a lot. So what happens exactly? So if a person does not have sons also, does not have children, then the person who, now say for example there is a couple also, they don't have children. So then what happens is, someone else will come and say, no, I am ready to buy your property. But if you are ready to buy that property, even the debts, maybe the loan or whatever it is, if something like that is there, that also should be paid by that person only. So it's not that if you inherit that property, you have to pay all the debts and so on. That is also your responsibility. And if there is a son, obviously the son has to pay the debts and everything. But it is said that a woman should not be held responsible for debts which are got by her husband or son. Why so? Because the property, if you see, it passes down to the son. So therefore, if the son is not paying or if the husband is not paying, it will not pass on to the wife. This is what has been mentioned in the Agni Purana. I don't know what are the laws there now, but I think it is the same law that is there. Further it is Similarly, vice versa, even the man is not responsible for the debts that are put by his wife or son, it seems. So basically, in two relationships that are there, a woman is not held responsible for debts which her husband or son has to face. Similarly, the man is not responsible for debts contracted by his wife or son. Because when we say some people buy nowadays houses or so, very nicely people buy on names of women, right? You have those, I think the loan rate, interest rate is little less. So very nicely we buy, but the debts when it come in, property you take, property gets transferred from husband to wife if you write a will, but the debts will not be passed on. This is what the Agni Purana mentions. Some debt we have to pay back. Then a proper witness should be there. If witnesses are not there, the king must arrange something. Something has to be made, and some depth or something has to be filled. There are DEBT is what is depth. And if like this there are no witnesses or there is no one, maybe the person is all alone like this, nothing has been mentioned or so, it seems that, and if a lot of debt is being remaining to be paid in a period of about 64 days, roughly more than 2 months, all the debts has to be cleared, it seems. And any false witness also, if they bring about, they will be punished and they will be banished from the kingdom and so on. And it seems that a person who agrees to be a witness but later he withdraws also, he will be punished about 8 times, it seems. So all these are different punishments that are being told. Further, all the details should be written down. That is the reason how much ever the world has gone ahead, we still believe in something called what is written on paper, right? We have a law book, we have stamp paper, you see all those legal documents, property documents. Till date we say property papers. Why do we say that? Because Agni Purana, of course you have other books that talk about this. Agni Purana also specifies, it says that everything has to be written down. Maybe the details of a debt or so, or property papers, all this. The names of two parties, if you are selling or if it is being passing about from one to another, and the witnesses, everything should be mentioned clearly. Next, if there's something is being paid in installments, the details of that also should be mentioned. It should be recorded on the return document. So everything should be in writing. That's the reason we say, give me in writing or give me on mail. Nowadays we have a very easy option, mail. But still, if you see with regards to legal issues or property issues, till date, even though the world has advanced, we don't expect anything to be maybe orally or over mail or so also. It should always be in writing. Same even Agni Purana mentions. And if it says that if you have some debts are being paid in debts are being told, okay, so much debt you have to pay back, and you have a witness, when you pay that back also, that witness should be present there, so that the witness, when you were about, when they told you to pay, at that time also the witness is there, the same person should be there when you pay back too. So these are all rules that are there. And if a witness has to take an oath, just as we have an oath nowadays, whenever we take an oath we have the Gita, right? On that Gita we keep a hand. But then it seems that in those times, on the head of the witness, cotton, fire, water, poison, that is just a drop of all this, it will be placed on the head of the witness, it seems. And fire or water used to be used to find out if a person is lying or not. And if fire is used, so basically when we say fire, it is not like roughly the fire is placed on the person's head. It's not like that. Basically like a small fire also will be burnt, like how we make a small arti or you light a small lamp, that way. Okay, so that is how it is used. And then 7 times or so you go around it, just as Rama and Sugriva had done friendship, right, in front of fire, Agni Sakshi. So all these rules are done even when you have to go to a court also. Next is, some people used to always say that you should give the person poison, and if he drinks poison it does him no harm, he is truthful. Now all this is like it has been said so, but then logically it becomes very difficult. Now whether you speak the truth or speak the lie, obviously the poison is going to have some effects, but still this is what is mentioned in the Agni Purana. Further, if a father writes a will, and if there are many sons also, the property will be divided amongst the sons as per the will made by the father. But if all the sons get an equal share, the wife should also be given an equal share. Otherwise, if this is not done, all the property is left to the eldest son. Then, in case the grandfather has left behind something, the sons and the father, all of them obtain an equal share of that. But the sons necessarily, like it's not necessary that the sons should get something left by their grandfather, but the father, that is, father will surely get something because that is his right. Now, if a son is born after a property is divided, say for example, I have some property also, I divide it, but then a child is born to me later, even then it should be given to him. Say for example, I already have one child, but later one more child is being born. We cannot say, no, when I divided, this other child was not there. We cannot say this. Now that person is your child, even that person should have an equal share. Further, daughters, they are not given property also because they go to another house, because we have a patriarchal system. But 1/4, it seems that sons also, or if you have a son also, they will use 1/4 of their property to get their sisters married or for their sisters' well-being. So that's the reason why you see usually women or daughters, you get the money. That is it, because anyways, now why this is being done, we should not think that this is discrimination. Only the sons are given property, daughters are not. Because ultimately when a property is given, it is expected that you stay there. Daughters or girls, it becomes very difficult to come and stay. Logically speaking, you don't come and stay there. So then a very easy way that is there is you give some money also. We will use that. So usually equal share, maybe the money is given and then the house is kept. So this is what is usually done. Or in earlier times, what they used to do is, now in those times, doing the marriage, all the rituals and so on was also difficult. So therefore, whatever expenses were there for the daughter's marriage, money used to be used, an equal share used to be kept there. So basically in those times, now today if you see, it is like the father has one house, son buys another house, daughter has a third house. So all this property is like, when we say property, it's just all money matters, right? Nobody actually stays in that. But the Agni Purana, when it was talking, it was at those that time when people, the son after the grandfather, father, we say ancestral home, right? Means for many generations together, people have stayed there. So it is going to pass on from one generation to another. So obviously the son is going to stay there. So if he is going to stay there, he cannot give that to the daughter. Logically, it's not possible. Daughter is anyways not going to come and stay. Only in between, she just comes for a while and she goes back. So therefore, the equal share of money also would be given. So you see, all our Puranas, whatever they have mentioned, we have to interpret it well. If you interpret it wrong, there is so much of discrimination, daughters are not given property, only sons are given property. If we have to raise a point and fight, we can fight for each and everything. So the right interpretation is very, very important. With this, the topic of property gets over. This shows that so much in depth has been studied in our Puranas. Now, next is donating Puranas. Purana books also should be donated, and this again, Agni Purana talks about the benefits, that whenever you give something in charity also, maybe you have you can say sometimes some occasion or as a gift also, when we give people, along with that maybe annadanam, money, whatever it is, you can also donate Puranas. And Puranas in earlier times, Purana books, they used to be donated along with cows, it seems. And Agni Purana also mentions the length of each of the Puranas, just as Narada Purana I think also had mentioned. So it is also quite similar to that. Now Agni Purana, you can just, if you want, I will just tell the numbers, later you can listen. Little you might find differences, not much. Brahma Purana 25, Padma Purana 12,000, Vishnu Purana, Padma Purana is a big Purana, right? How can it be 12,000? Anyone knows? Have I told you before? I don't remember. 55,000 verses. Here Agni Purana mentions that Padma Purana has got only 12,000 verses. Okay, just note down. Vishnu Purana, I will just cross check once with the original Purana also, original Agni Purana, whether this is there. If anyone wants, you can also check from your end. 1.8.3. Okay, I've just noted down in notes, but I should cross check. Okay, let us discuss this tomorrow's in the next session that is there. I will tell you the names, because I find this little a bit amiss, because the numbers are said to be very old, or you can say it's quite less. And Agni Purana itself mentions that there are, okay, Agni Purana only has got a few conceptions, wherein Agni Purana says, like I told you, Padma Purana has about 12,000, Agni Purana states, but it is actually 55,000. Varaha Purana, Agni Purana says it has 14,000 verses. Originally it has got about 24,000. So, in fact, Agni Purana itself has got little more than 15,000, but it mentions about 12,000. So approximately the length is mentioned. Not in those times again it will not be very accurate. Like just like all of us also, if you ask how much did you eat or how much did you buy, for how much, maybe you buy for 5,000 also, you'll say roughly about 4-5,000 we buy, right? So you give an approximate number, or someone asks how much do you expect, say for example in terms of salary also, we say roughly 10%, 20%, or between 20-30, something we say. We don't give an exact number. So that might be the reason why little you have. Agni Purana itself has, it mentions like a disclaimer, little it can go up and down, and it does not give a reference about Bhavishya Purana here. So this maybe it can happen that Bhavishya Purana was written after Agni Purana. That's the reason why it does not give any reference about the Bhavishya Purana. Skanda Purana is the longest. Kurma and Garuda Puranas are the shortest. And Brahma Purana is donated in the month of Vaishakha. Padma Purana, Jeshta. Now all this we had seen even in one of the earlier Puranas. Vishnu Purana in the month of Ashada. Vayu Purana in Shravan, that is now. Bhagavata Purana in Bhadrapada. Narada Purana, Ashwin. Markandeya Purana, Kartikeya. Please listen to the audio. Those who are interested, you can note it down later. Agni Purana in the month of Margashirsha. Bhavishya Purana in the month of Pausha. Now in the list of numbers that is there, Bhavishya Purana's numbers is not mentioned, but later when it has to be donated, that has been mentioned. Brahma Vaivarta Purana in the month of Pausha. So Bhavishya and Brahma Vaivarta both in the month of Paush, and even in the month of Magha, roughly February, at that time also Brahma Vaivarta Purana. Sorry, I confused you. Bhavishya Purana in the month of Paush, Brahma Vaivarta Purana also in the month of Paush, and Brahma Vaivarta Purana is also donated in the month of Magha, February, Linga Purana in the month of Falgun, Varaha Purana, Chaitra. Skanda Purana is usually given to priests and Brahmins. Vamana Purana is given in the autumn season. Kurma Purana is given with a golden, you can say like a small pot or so. So Kurma Purana, a small container basically, that is, so Kurma Purana is given along with that. Matsya Purana is given with a golden swan, so like a small, you can say gift kind of thing of a swan, how we have those small statues like that. Brahmanda Purana is given again to Brahmins, and it is said that even people who recite, or like us who listen to the stories of the Puranas, great benefits. And the reciter, now usually when you have a, say for example Bhagavata Purana, we have those Saptaham, right? So even there are a few people who are specially invited for chanting. To them also we have to do all kinds of hospitality, give them in charity, alms and so on, cows, rice, land. And it says that even if you arrange for a recitation of the Puranas, you are blessed with a long life, health, you attain Swarga, prosperity, and so on. So these are all with regards to the Puranas. I will just check the original Purana and tell you the numbers if there is something amiss, but it itself mentions a disclaimer, so it will be true, but still tomorrow we will cross check. Okay, so today time is up. We have seen till here. Tomorrow we will continue with these Puranas, the list of Puranas and different Vamsha dynasties that are there. Okay. Hari Om, Dhanyavadaha. Om. शुक्लांबरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणी विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. So let's continue with Agni Purana. So yesterday if you see, we saw about the importance of giving charity, Gayatri Mantra we have seen, then about property rights we saw, then about dreams, nightmares, different omens and signs that have been told, we saw about that. Further, we also saw about how a battle should take place, what are the rules that are to be followed for a battle, how the king should fight, then the teachings of Dhanurveda as told by Rama to Lakshmana, and also Dhanurveda mainly has got its, you can say, origin, or some information is mentioned in the Agni Purana. We also saw that different weapons, Amukta, Yantra Mukta, Amukta, Mukta Sandrata, and so on. Further, you have the property rules that have been mentioned. Then we also saw about donating the Puranas. So I told you that I will check with the original Purana and told you. So basically in Agni Purana, the numbers that are mentioned is like I gave you the disclaimer yesterday. Sometimes there is, like for example, the Agni Purana itself has got roughly about 15,000 verses. But then Agni Purana itself, sometimes in the books it is mentioned that it has about 12,000. Or even Skanda Purana for that matter, in all it has got 81,000 verses. Here it is mentioned 84,000. So later you have numbers like this which go a bit wrong, but then we cannot consider totally. So why it has been mentioned is little, they are not very much accurate. So maybe there can be you can say time difference in the period that is there when these Puranas were compiled. So maybe that is the reason why you have these misconceptions. But mostly normally whatever we have seen the numbers also originally, that only you can consider. So basically like an approximate length. So 15,000 to 12,000. So like I told you, an approximate number between 12 and 15. So that way it is considered. Maybe that was the reason why such numbers were given approximately. Next you have different Vamshas. Story of different Vamshas that are being told. So let's have a look at that. Now as creation started, Brahma was born through Vishnu's navel, through the lotus. Then Brahma's son was Marichi. Out of the 7 Manasa Putras of Brahma, first was Marichi, his son was Kashyapa, Kashyapa's son Vivaswan, and that's how Pururava, his descendants started. Pururava is the solar dynasty, Surya Vamsha, that is the ancestor of Rama. Then Brahma had another son called Atri, he had a son Soma. Soma had performed a Rajasuya Yajna, and that's how he became the ruler of all the 3 worlds, and he had abducted Brihaspati's daughter Tara. Brihaspati's wife Tara, sage Brihaspati's wife Tara, and this ultimately led to, you can say, a terrible war between the Devas and the Asuras. Brihaspati got back Tara, but Soma and Tara, they had a son that is nothing but Buddha Griha or Mercury. Buddha was born, and from Buddha, that's how the descendants of the Chandra Vamsha of the lunar dynasty come. So basically, Soma Vamsha, Surya dynasty, Marichi, Brahma, Marichi, Kashyapa, Vivaswan, Pururava, and then the kings of the solar dynasty. Soma Vamsha, Brahma, Atri, Soma, Buddha, and that's how Chandra Vamsha comes in. Then it seems that there were about, now look, details about the wars between the Devas and Asuras that has been mentioned in the Agni Purana. It seems that about 12 major wars have taken place between the gods and the Asuras. The first was called the Narasimha Yuddham. This was when Hiranyakashipu was the king of Asuras. Vishnu took the form, that is, in the form of Narasimha Avatara, he killed the demon Hiranyakashipu. This is the first war. Then Prahlada was made the king of demons. Second war was the Vamana Avatara, when Bali was the king of demons. Vishnu adopted the form of Vamana, and that's how. Now basically if you see the Vamana Avatara, the god actually did not fight a war, but he brought down, you can say, the pride of Bali. Third was Varaha Avatara, when Hiranyaksha was the king of Asuras, wherein Vishnu adopted the form of Varaha, a wild boar. That's how he killed Hiranyaksha and saved Prithvi Devi, Uma Devi, earth from Patal Loka. Further, the fourth war was the Samudra Manthana, the Amrita Manthana, the churning of the ocean for Amrita. That's how nectar comes out. The fifth war was when Tara was abducted, that is Brihaspati's wife. Tara was abducted by Soma, that is the Tarakamaya war. That is the fifth war that took place between the Devas and Asuras. The sixth war was Ajivaka war. Seventh war when Tripura, he led the Asuras. Tripura Ghatana war. It was when Lord Shiva, he killed demon Tripura. The eighth war was Andhaka, wherein Andhaka led the Asuras, and Andhaka, ultimately Vishnu made a plan that Andhaka should be killed, and Andhaka, he had developed a desire towards Shiva's wife Parvati. Next is the ninth war was Vritra Samhara, wherein Vritra, he was a king of Asuras. 10th war was simply called Jita, and it seems that in this war Vishnu killed a bit of demons and Parashurama killed the evil Kshatriyas. The 11th war was called Halahala, wherein the poison comes out, Shiva ultimately consumes, and again this is also not kind of a war, but you can say basically saving the world from some kinds of danger, that also falls in the category of wars. Further, Vishnu in the 12th war called Kolahala, there was the 12th war was called Kolahala, wherein Vishnu, he destroys and kills an asura called Kolahala. Kolahala is nothing but, you can say, a tumult or a very, you can say, very dangerous situation. So these were the 12 wars that took place between the Devas and the Asuras. Further, you have the mention of Ayurveda or medical science that has been mentioned in Agni Purana. What is that? Now, Lord Dhanvantari Bhagavan, an avatar of Lord Vishnu, is considered to be the god of medicine, and he taught sage Sushruta the art of Ayurveda or the art of medical science. And that's how we have Sushruta Samhita that comes in. What Sushruta learned, what are the treatment for various diseases, that has been mentioned to some extent briefly in the Agni Purana. And it doesn't just simply mean only the treatment of human illnesses. Okay, some illness has affected human beings, how it should be treated. It doesn't limit itself only to that, but even the science of Vriksha Ayurveda, that is, what kind of trees should be planted where, that also has been mentioned. So Vriksha Ayurveda is a science in itself. It has got its origin in the Agni Purana. Then how a garden is constructed. Nowadays many people have this hobby, right? Gardening. From where has this come in? The origin is there in the Agni Purana. How a garden should be maintained, how it has to be built, what plants should be grown, and so on. And in the chapters that talk about medical science, not only for human illnesses to be treated, even treatment for elephants, horses, and cattle, that also has been mentioned. Further, you have even the mantras that are chanted for remedies like snake poison and so on, to be free from snake poison. All that also has been mentioned in the Agni Purana. Further, you have reference of literature and Vyakaranam that has been mentioned. And it also talks about the different types of chandas. Chandas is nothing but the science of meters that is used in poetry. So that also is mentioned here. Next, it discusses about various alphabets of Sanskrit literature. Agni Purana says that there are about 64 Varanas, that is 64 alphabets, out of which 21 are vowels. Now little you can see, apart from what we study today, little you can find a few differences up and down. Maybe in the course of time, few signs or few letters, symbols were added and so on. Then there are about 3 tones, you can say, mainly intonation. Now in Vedic chanting especially this comes in which the letters are chanted. They are Udata, Anudata and Swarita. That has been mentioned. And about 8 places in the body are there from which the pronunciation takes place. What is that? The chest. From the chest a few letters are pronounced. From the throat, head, back of the tongue. You see, when we pronounce a few letters, we roll our tongue backwards, right? So the chest, throat, head, back of the tongue, teeth, nose, lips and the palate, the entire mouth area that is there. So pronunciations should be very much clear and audible. Now all this, if you read the Sanskrit Varnamala, you have clear answers for this. Few letters we chant through our tongue, our teeth, throat and so on. And further, we should not stammer, not mumble, or maybe speak inside our mouth. Some people, when they speak, the speech is not clear, right? So that should not happen. At the same time, though we have a few consonants that are called anunasikas or nasal consonants, which are pronounced with the help of our nose, that is there. Especially examples like ma, na and so on. I'll give you a simple example. When you pronounce the letters like ma and na very smoothly, you need not press your nose, but just slightly you can touch your nose and just see ma, na, pa. Just touch and see for yourself. You can feel some sensation there. That's the reason whenever we have a bad cold or so, we will not be able to pronounce letters like ma, na, na, ga, sha and so on. So these are a few letters which are called anunasikas. But only except for these 5 letters and anuswar, nothing else should be pronounced. Anuswar is nothing but the dot that comes in Sanskrit Varnamala. Apart from this, nothing should be pronounced through our nose. You see, we come across people, right? Sometimes when they speak about, we feel that they are speaking through their nose. That should not happen. Speech should be very much clear. Further, Agni Purana also talks about various alankaras, alankara shastram, figure of speech, as we say in English, which is used in poetry mainly. So that also has been mentioned here. Then you have even the origin of Sanskrit language that has been mentioned. Agni Purana says that Sanskritam is Deva Bhasha, language of the gods, and without knowing the rules of poetry, without knowing the rules of Sanskrit literature and grammar, poetry cannot be composed well. So therefore it is impossible to compose poetry without having proper knowledge of the rules of poetry. Next, the language of human. Now it seems that in earlier times the language of gods, Deva Bhasha, used to be Sanskrit, and the language of humans used to be Prakrita. Poetry was written either in Sanskrit language or in Prakrit language. Now Prakrita is nothing but it is a, you can say, like a refined form of Sanskrit only, but not a very pure version. Today of course we don't come across all this, but this was what, because in earlier times Sanskrit was a common mode of language, that it was a conversational language. So the gods used to speak in pure Sanskrit, that is there, and a refined form of it was Prakrita, Prakrit language, which human beings used to speak. Now Gadya, how should literature be composed? Literature can be of three types: Churnaka, Utkalika and Vritragandhi. Churnaka is the first type of literature. Churnaka. Churnaka, it seems that it is, you can consider an easy form of prose literature that is there. Not a lot of compound words, not a lot of difficult words. So basically, literature that is composed using easy words, that is Churnaka. Utkalika is full of compound words, or you can say a lot of difficult words and so on. So only if you have studied grammar and the language properly, you will be able to understand this kind of gadyam, this kind of literature, that is Utkalika. And third is Vritragandhi. This prose is, you can say, medium. Somewhere between Churnaka and Utkalika is Vritragandhi, it falls in between. Next, this is about Gadya. Gadya is nothing but literature that is written in a prose form. Next, about itihasas or epics. A few rules have been mentioned. It seems that epics should always be divided into sections or sargas. That's the reason you see the Valmiki Ramayana, it has got 7 kandas and each chapter is called a sarga there. Or even Mahabharata is divided into different parvas. So therefore, why this is done is so that it becomes easy. Now say for example, Ramayana has got about 24,000 verses, Mahabharata more than 1 lakh verses. You just present everything in one form, it becomes very difficult, right? Whereas you divide it amongst different chapters, you know what each sarga, what each part is talking about, it becomes easy. So therefore, that is the reason why an epic should be divided into various chapters or sargas. This rule has been mentioned in the Agni Purana. Further, the theme of an epic. Now we have only 2 epics, Itihasas, Ramayana, Mahabharata. It seems that the theme should always be good. It should relate with history. It should be historical, and it should usually revolve around good things. Good things now, basically now Mahabharata is a compilation of both good and bad. Ramayana also. So basically some very good historical character. It's not that we just now, I cannot write my own story and call it as an itihas. It is not like that. Maybe of a great hero like Rama himself. Mahabharata has got many characters. Krishna was a part of that. So therefore, a very great epic, that is nothing. So that only falls. Maybe you can say a very great story about a very great person, that only falls in the category of epics. Further, how should literature be written? If literature is written without studying Natya Shastram, that is without knowing rasas, rasa we have Navarasas. Navarasa, Bharata Muni has mentioned in his Natya Shastram Navarasas. Hasya, Raudra, Bibhatsa, Adbhuta and so on. That is laughter, sorrow, crying, surprising, you can say very unpleasant. Like we just look at something, maybe you see garbage on the road, we make a particular face, right? Or some foul smell comes in, we don't like it. That is Bibhatsa. Or Adbhuta is wonderful. So like this, different sentiments are to be used. So for example, all of us, we go and see a movie or so. If just the character is very plainly just telling his dialogues, we don't enjoy the movie, right? But maybe you read a book also, we are able to experience. You can find out how the author has put in all the rasas, all the sentiments are mentioned there. Only then we enjoy the piece. Be it a movie, be it a play or a book that we read. If the sentiments of the rasas, if emotions and feelings are not there. Now, even when now I am speaking, if I now the entire 1 hour, if I speak in one particular tone, in the same tone, you will not like it, right? Now when I ask you a question, right? When I say, tone changes a bit. When I speak, you see there is voice modulation. I go up and down. So why do we follow all this? So that the person who is hearing to us and we at the same time feel comfortable while speaking, as well as when the audience is hearing, they also like to hear. So therefore in literature, rasas are very, very important. Bharata Muni has mentioned this in his Natya Shastram. Natya Shastram deals with art, architecture, dance forms, music and so on. So the first rasa out of the Navarasas is Hasya, that is humor. Second is Karuna, Karuna or compassion, pathos. Third is Raudra, anger. Fourth is Veera, heroism. Fifth is Bhayanaka, horror. Sixth, Bibhatsa. Bibhatsa is just by looking at it, you don't feel like looking at it like that. Seventh is Adbhuta, you can say surprising, wonderful, or very strange, very difficult things that are difficult to believe. Adbhuta. Eighth is Shanta, Shanta, peaceful. And the last is Shringara, that is beautiful or romance. So these are all 9 rasas which should be there in it should be there in a part of any literature. Can everyone hear me clearly?
It's very clear.
Yes, we can
Clear,
hear.
right? Okay.
Very clear only.
Okay. Mansi ji,
Yes,
just check.
yes, very, very clear.
Okay. Mansi ji, just check. Like she told that there is no clarity, so that.
Okay, then maybe there's a problem in my.
So maybe Mansi ji, you can just try leaving and join. Maybe a network issue or so. Just check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Okay. Now when all these sentiments are being there, now say for example someone tells it is hasya. Now in Natya Shastra, mainly Bharata, he mentions about different dramas or how plays were being enacted. So the actor or Nataha is a person who enacts the drama or so. He should have those qualities in him. Say for example, if it is hasya, maybe a comedy scene or a humorous scene you're doing, the person who's enacting should have those qualities. If he is having a very serious look or so, hasya, this rasa will not reach the audience, right? Or it can be anything else. Maybe it is shringara or karuna. The actor should actually cry, and you look at the person, you should feel that he is feeling you can say karuna, is feeling very compassionate for the person. Maybe if you have raudra, the person should have a very ferocious form. Only then we can see that anger. So therefore, knowing the sentiments at the same time, enacting, that is also very, very important. This should also be made a part of the literature. Now in the case of a drama or so, or a movie acting, it becomes still easy. Like, a person can immediately show what he wants, you see it in front of your eyes. Whereas when all these rasas have to be included in literature, it becomes difficult, because all of us, what we do is, when you read a book at that time, or book or a piece of literature, you should be able to experience those rasas, those sentiments. So something we see in front of our eyes, it still becomes easy, but through a book, if you have to experience things, it becomes difficult. So such qualities should be there of the author, that whenever a person, the reader, is reading the context, reading the text that is there, he should be able to experience those rasas. Next is, a lot of feeling should also be there. Feeling is, now just for the sake of writing, you write something, there is no use. Whatever you mean to write, that should reach the reader. So the writing skills, the literary skills should be very, very good. Now next, a lot of skills have also been mentioned, that is 64 kalas that are being mentioned. Out of that, we have a few that are mentioned, like the most important one are singing, or playing musical instruments, dancing, acting, drawing, or garland making, sewing, hairdressing, magic, all this. So all these skills are mentioned. Next is, you have in literature, you have the use of sandhi and samasa. Sandhi and samasa. Sandhi and samasa, what is the difference between now sandhi is a combination of two words, and that is basically entire word is given. If you break it into two parts, that's how. So basically you can say the combination of the joining of two words leads to a third word. Compound words is basically two different words, or mostly. Now sandhi and samasa, they are quite similar, but a slight difference that comes between both of them is that compound words, both the words usually have a separate meaning for themselves, whereas in the case of sandhi, it's not necessary that both the words should have meaning. Like, it can just be the joining of two words. It's not necessary that both should have meaning also. It can even have one word had some meaning, another need not have a meaning. So that too can be the case. So like this, these are all grammar rules, grammar concepts of sandhi and samasa, that is compound words, and joining words, that is sandhi, which has been mentioned. Next is the difference between Sandhi and Samasa has also been mentioned in the Agni Purana, wherein the same thing that I told you is, in Sandhi, both the words you join, it's not necessary that both should have separate meanings. Both should be meaningful words, but in the case of Samasa, usually it doesn't happen. And in the case of Samasa, sometimes when you join two words, the compound word that is formed, that might altogether give you a third meaning. So therefore you see, two words which join to make one word, those two words will have individual meanings, and the compound word that is formed, that might have a third meaning. So it can happen in certain cases, and therefore Sandhi does not create any new word also, it's just the joining of two words. So these are all mentioned here. Next is one example I'll give you. For example, Pita Ambara. Pita is yellow, Ambara is cloth. Pita has got a separate meaning, Ambara. When you combine both the words, it is Pita Ambara. That means the one who is dressed in yellow, that is Krishna. So Pita Ambara is another name for Lord Krishna. So you see, all the three words have got different meanings. Pita, yellow, Ambara, cloth, Pita Ambara together, Krishna. So this is Samasa. This is an example of compound words that is mentioned. Like this, you have got lot of, for example, Gajananaha. Gajaha Ananam Yasya Saha. This is one type of Samasa that is there. One who is having the face of an elephant. Gajaha, elephant, Anana, face, Gajanana, Ganesha. So all three words have got separate meanings. Now let's not go too much in deep now, because there might be a few people who are not aware of Sanskrit much, that too with regards to Sandhi and Samasa. Sometimes it becomes very tough. You can say that even the great scholars of Sanskrit language, sometimes they find it very difficult to understand Samasa. Next, you have about 6 Karakas that are mentioned as a part of Sanskrit Vyakaranam. What is Karakas? And 7 Vibhaktis. Sorry? Yes, you can consider as nouns. Basically, it is like now for example, when we say 6 Karakas, it starts with Prathama, it goes till about nouns you can say, and it is basically case. In English you translate it as case. That means noun, pullingam, strilingam and so on like this. That is called a gender which is there, that's called lingam, and Karakas are called as case in English. And also 7 vibhaktis are there. 7 vibhaktis in simple language you can call it as prepositions that are there, in, on. So basically in English, how we have separate words for prepositions that are there, in Sanskrit you don't have separate words for prepositions. With the word itself, a letter or so is joined, and that's how prepositions are, that's how the meaning is interpreted. So they are called 7 vibhaktis. So like this, you have Vachana. Vachanam is nothing but number. Ekavachanam singular, Dvivachanam dual, Trivachanam, Bahuvachanam is plural, and so on. So like this, 3 genders, Pullingam masculine, Strilingam feminine, Napusakalingam neuter. So all this has been mentioned. Further, Karta, Karma. Karta is the subject, Karma is the object. So basically a lot of base of Sanskrit Vyakaranam has been mentioned here. Next you have towards the end, you have the topic of Pralaya that comes in the Agni Purana. So basically, when does Pralayas take place? Periodically or frequently Pralayas take place, and it seems that Pralaya comes at the end of 4,000 yugas on the earth. So at the end of 4,000 yugas, now it's Kali Yuga, Satya, Treta, Dwapara, Kali. Like this 4,000 yugas when it takes place, it seems that Pralaya comes in. And what exactly happens is, during Pralaya is, for about 100 years or so, there will be no rains, only a drought condition everywhere. And then it seems that Vishnu, he uses the rays of the sun to drink up water, to dry up all the waters that are there, to drink and dry all the waters on earth. And it seems that 7 different suns appear on the earth at that time, and they burn all the 3 worlds of heaven, earth and hell. Further here, the earth becomes, it seems, so dry as if the back of a turtle. All this description has been mentioned in the Agni Purana. Then Shesha also, that is Adishesha, he also, it seems that he also contributes, maybe he releases a lot of poison and fire from his mouth in order to burn down the world. Next, after all the three worlds are burned, dark clouds full of thunder and lightning, they come in the sky. Then after everything has dried up, for the next 100 years, continuously it's going to rain, floods come in, and at this time, from Vishnu's breath, it seems that heavy winds start blowing, there is water everywhere. Vishnu sleeps on those waters, that is the position of Yoga Nidra. For an entire kalpa, he sleeps. Then all the sages, they pray to Lord Vishnu for the three worlds to be created again. So this is what exactly is Pralaya Kala. Now, further, what happens is, when now something has been mentioned about hell and Yamaloka and so on. Ultimately, what happens is, when human beings die, physical bodies are given up. Physical body is what is died. What dies about, the new bodies are created. Now it is like the soul remains the same, only physical body goes away and the same soul has to go away somewhere. So when we attain a new physical body, that is called as Ativahika bodies. This is what is called Ativahika. And it seems that these bodies, they are bought from by Yama's servants, by Yamadutas, they are brought to Yamaloka. And living beings other than humans, they are not brought to Yama. All the other beings, all the other living creation, they have to go to Yamaloka. For human beings, based on one's karma, that is based on one's actions, good or bad, Yama decides whether this person should go to heaven or to hell. So that is how it is done. And after, depending on one's karma, once you have got the punishments or maybe the merits, whatever good things if you have done, you will be blessed with good things. After all that is done, you have served your time in heaven or hell, then again you have to be born. And further, then Yama decides where the living being should be born and so on, depending on the actions that we have done. And this is how the cycle of birth and death and the concept of rebirth keeps going on continuously. And because you can say Yamadeva, he maintains a proper tally of good and bad things, that's the reason why he is called as Dharma, because he is very stringent, right? Just as now most of us, we might be using tally, right? You use a tally software to maintain the accounts part also, it is like that. Based on our actions, Yama, he properly tallies how many good actions, how many bad actions, and based on that he comes to a conclusion. So basically he is very stringent of rules, that's why he is called Dharma. And those who have done good deeds, they are rewarded by Dharma. Those who have done sins, they are punished. Chitragupta is Yama's accountant, it seems, and he keeps account of all the punya, papa, good things, merit and sins that all human beings do. Now it seems that there are about 28 circles of hell that each one of us, there are many hells, out of that about 28 circles are told through which a sinner will have to go to depending on one's sins. Then you have, now who is born as what, that is also being mentioned here. Like maybe a person who has killed a priest or so, or a brahmana for that matter, he will be born as an animals like a dog, pig, camel and so on. Then a drunkard person, a person who is addicted to drinks or so, alcoholic, he will be born as a donkey it seems. A person who steals gold will be born as an insect or a worm. Then a person again who kills brahmana might suffer from diseases like TB, tuberculosis. Then a person who steals food, annam, will be born dumb it seems. Then person who has stolen the property will be born as a rakshasa, especially property of brahmanas, also priests. Then a person who steals fragrant scents, perfumes and so on will be born as a mole, M-O-L-E, mole. Then one who steals food grains will be born as a rat. One who steals animals or so will be born as a goat. One who steals milk as a cow. One who steals fruits as a monkey. One who steals meat, M-E-A-T, meat as a vulture. And one who steals clothes will be born as a crane. One who steals salt will be born as a cricket insect. So like this, few things have been mentioned in the Agni Purana. Next you have yoga. The yoga shastram has been mentioned in brief in Yoga Shastra. Firstly, it is said that to practice yoga, whenever we practice yoga, all the miseries of life go away. So that is basically, it is quite true, because whenever you practice yoga, physically we feel very strong, mentally also we feel very happy. So therefore, it makes our mind very pleasant. Then we also know about the nature of reality, and the base of yoga is non-violence, ahimsa. Then you have the Ashtanga yoga that is mentioned in brief. Then before you start doing yoga, the prerequisites for yoga have been mentioned. That is, first of all, you have to sit in a proper posture. Now you see, most of the illnesses that come, like for example backache and so on, now, even if you sit properly also you might develop backache, but you see most of the things happen because our posture is not proper, right? We don't sit erect. Maybe now also if you see, you sit on a chair, on a bed, or even on the floor also, our backs are most of the time we don't sit straight. First of all, you sit on the sofa also, usually you see some people, they will not sit erect at all. They will keep stooping down, especially young children also, you see they will never sit straight, they will keep stooping down, right? Maybe they lift their legs up and sit. So this, it though at that time we don't realize, it does later affect our backbone, it seems affect our entire body parts. But even if you see for a long time or so, if you keep sitting without maybe sleeping, lying down, or without getting up, immediately we develop back pain, right? So therefore posture is something which is very important. Even Yoga Shastra tells about this, saying that having a good posture will ensure that many diseases go away, because, and that is the main thing why a lot of physical illnesses are caused, like backache and so on, because our posture is not proper. So the prerequisite or the basic thing that is needed for yoga is to sit in a proper asana, to maintain a proper posture. Next is, you should always have a piece of cloth. That's the reason it is said that even when you sit on the floor also, you should never sit on the plain ground or plain floor. You should always have a mat also, because the floor, it drains your body energy. That's the reason why we should never sleep on the floor also plainly. You put a mat or a bed sheet something and then you sleep on that. Because when you sleep plainly on the floor, it drains all your body energy. So therefore, whenever you sit, sleep or whatever, you should always keep a piece of cloth and it should be very clean. And so these are all prerequisites for yoga. Even though we are not practicing yoga, these things can be followed. Then pranayama has been mentioned, wherein pranavayu, oxygen, is controlled through the right methods of pranayama. Further how inhalation, exhalation takes place, how the finger should be placed on one nostril, from the other nostril you inhale, then you shut the other nostril, then you exhale. All those methods have been mentioned. Then pranayama alone is not enough. Even meditation, that is dhyanam or japa yajna, maybe japa of your own ishta devata, of any god. So this helps in developing concentration of the mind and focus. That's the reason why japa or dhyanam is very important. Now next, the thing, now all this, after dhyana, the last stage is samadhi. So you have all yogic scholars, sages and so on, wherein we say samadhi. Samadhi is nothing but they're sitting in a very erect position, but from inside and from outside they are not aware of what is happening around them, what is happening in their surroundings. They have their full concentration on their breath alone. It's a very difficult stage, but then that is the last stage. So firstly you start with physical asanas, then pranayama, then dhyanam, japa, and ultimately samadhi. So these are the different stages of yoga. Now it is very difficult, but at the same time all this is there, which slowly with practice we can develop. Just as Krishna also tells in the Gita, abhyasa yogena, only with abhyasa it will come. We should not give up, we should keep putting in efforts. Then lastly, a bit Agni Purana gets a bit philosophical. It talks about the knowledge of Brahman and so on, that is ultimate reality. And that is, this physical body is not the Atma, nor the sense are the Atma. There is a soul, nor the mind, nor this life, nothing, but it is something which is very much different, and it is there inside an individual's heart. That is nothing but the soul that is there. So that's the reason why you see, when a person dies, what exactly happens is soul goes away, right? Our breath stops, soul goes away. That's the reason you have your heart pumping. You keep your hand on your chest, you can feel your heart pumping, right? But why do we join our hands? We join our hands and keep it in our chest. Why do we do that? Because we believe that the Lord resides inside. So Atma, soul, reality, that is a place, the chest is said to be the place where the Atma resides. And to know about the true nature of that, know about Brahman, this is ultimate philosophy which is mentioned on earth. And there are, which is mentioned in the Puranas. And the Purana itself mentions that only a few people try to attain this knowledge. And one of them was Bharata, the king Bharata, after whom our country has been named as Bharata. But it so happened that due to certain incidents, he got very much attached to a deer, to an animal deer, and the result was in his next life he was born as a deer. But it is it seemed that the deer, he turned to be a Jati Smarana. What is Jati Smarana or Jati Smara? Jati Smara is nothing but one who can remember about his earlier life. So therefore, what happened is that the deer, though Bharata was reborn as a deer, he felt very bad that, oh, I was such a great person, I was focusing a lot on reality, Brahman, Atma, I was just about to attain real knowledge, but suddenly I saw a deer, I got attached to it, I spent my whole life doing that, and now ultimately I have been born as a deer. So now he realizes this, and then but still he thinks, the same thought lingers in his mind that I should get a human birth again, I should again try to continue to put in my efforts and so on. And ultimately in his next birth he was again born as a Jati Smara human being, that is again who remembers what happens in the previous birth. Then what happened is that, so like this now again, so Bharata was a person, a king, then he was born as a deer, and again now as a human being. So now what happens is, then, so like this, he was in his third birth, he was as a human being. So once the king of Shaubira, a place called Shaubira, he was once traveling, and he was traveling on a palanquin, and he needed someone who would lift his palanquin. So usually kings and queens used to travel in palanquins then, and you have a group of servants and ministers. So he needed one more person to lift his palanquin. The king's ministers see Bharata and they call him, saying that you please come here and please help. Bharata, he was ready, he helped them, but it seems that Bharata had grown to be very weak, so he could not lift the palanquin properly. So the king asked that, what happened? You, looking at your face, you feel that you are very tired and weak. Can you not bear the palanquin? Physically you look very strong, but then what has happened? Bharata replied that, I am not strong, nor am I lifting your palanquin. I am not tired, I am not lazy, I am only my Atma, that's it. And my body is balanced on it. So all this, a lot of philosophically he starts speaking, I am not this, I am not that. Now the basis of Nirvana Shatakam, Sadhana Panchakam, wherein Adi Shankaracharya also highlights on this philosophy, I am nothing, but I am only the Atma that is there. So Bharata also talks about all this. Bharata then tells the king, he advises the king about the different mysteries, different things about true knowledge and so on, about the Atma and all this. Hearing these words of wisdom, the king falls at the feet of Bharata and he says, forgive me, you leave the palanquin and tell me who are you. For that again Bharata says, who am I? That this question cannot be answered easily. The king said, I am not understanding what you are speaking, but since this is a form in which you are existing in the form of Bharata, you tell that this is your form. Bharata said no, because he said that a few years back I was born as a deer. At that time my identity was different. In the previous birth of the deer, I was a person called Bharata, so again my identity was different. Like this, many births I have taken only for a temporary period. Like roughly if you compare all of us, only for a temporary period of 100 years, we have an identity as so and so. Maybe in this birth you are called by so and so name, you are doing this is your profession, you live here, that's it. After 100 years your identity is going to change. So he says that everything is temporary. So now all these things, if you think deeply, you might feel that, oh, it's so philosophical or something which is beyond what we think, or you might find it even boring. But this is all what has been mentioned. If you think very deeply, you will have answers for all this. Then like this, Bharata keeps on telling, and ultimately the king accepts Bharata as his guru, as his teacher, as his acharya. Then Bharata tells the story of Ribhu and Nidhaga. Now what's the story of that? So basically these stories are wherein Bharata tells, or he conveys the knowledge of Atma to these kings who are there. Further, Ribhu was a sage, he was Brahma's son, and he was also extremely learned. And Nidhaga, he was Ribhu's disciple. So Ribhu had taught Nidhaga's disciple everything, and then Nidhaga, he went to the city side. And Nidhaga, he went to the city, he bought a few things for his guru to eat. So in those times, there used to be a lot of shishyas and disciples who used to live in the Gurukula, and they used to serve their acharya well. So maybe to cook food for him, to wash his clothes and so on, and help him in all his activities. So Nidhaga, also like a very good disciple, he also used to help his guru Ribhu a lot, and he offered some food to Ribhu, whatever he got from the city side. And then Nidhaga asked Ribhu, are you satisfied with whatever I got for you? Ribhu asks that, what do you mean by satisfaction? And it's just I'm just having food just to sustain my life, that's it. So you should not have food for satisfaction and all this. So he also gives a very philosophical answer. And like this, Nidaga, he tells Nidaga this, and Nidaga is okay, he accepts that. Then finally what happens is, after many years or so after Nidaga finishes his education, he goes and lives in the city. And at that time, after many years, Ribu comes to the city. He knew that Nidaga was living in the city. He goes and he finds out about Nidaga. But surprisingly, he doesn't find Nidaga in the city. And it seems that Nidaga started living on the outskirts of the city. He used to live in the main city, but now he started living on the outskirts. So Ribu, he asked Nidaga, why are you not living in the city? You used to live in the city, right? Well, now you are living on the outskirts. So any reason, what happened, and so on, he questions. So Nidaga, he replied that no, I no longer live in the city, because in the city there is a king. Ribu asks, who's the king? You show me who's this king. Has he told you to go, or what it is? Why are you afraid of him, or why because of him you have left the city? What happened? So Nidaga said that this king is very tall. He's tall as a mountain, and he's the one who rides an elephant, and his subjects are also very powerful, and so on. So Nidaga, Ribu at this time, he teaches. Now this king was none other than King Shaubira, whom previously Bharata meets. So through this, basically what Ribu here tells is that Ribu tells that the king is also ultimately a human being, you are also ultimately a human being. Even those animals also, like elephant, horses and so on, or even the subjects who are living in the kingdom, they are also human beings. We have the same body parts, eyes, ears, nose and so on, the same strength. Maybe there can be a few variations, but the qualities, characteristics are all same. So why should you be afraid? Just because the status of someone is more or so, you need not be afraid of that. He is a king, he is a senior, he is a junior. You need not worry of this. Ultimately all of us are human beings. So through this is what the Ribu tells Nidaga. Nidaga realizes this. So you see, though all these things might be philosophical, the thing that we learn to this is, all our scriptures, they used to always, you can say, appreciate unity and equality. To look at everyone, samabuddhihi, as we say, to look at everyone with and everything with equality. They are also fellow human beings, right? Now sometimes, maybe now at least in this context, he was a king. So king at least you can consider on a higher side. But even amongst human beings also, even if we feel that I know two things more than you, immediately we start puffing up, right, with pride. I know so much, you don't know anything. The opposite person is also a human being. Maybe a few qualities can differ. What you know, the other person might not be knowing. The things that you don't know, he might be expert in that. So everyone is blessed with something, right? So if everyone knows everything, then we are all gods then. So it doesn't happen that way. But that again, it doesn't mean that only one person will be extremely blessed. If now say for example, I know about something, I might not know about some other thing, right? Maybe the opposite person, the things that I don't know, he might be an expert in that. So but then the thing with human beings is, it becomes very difficult for us to accept that the opposite person knows more than me. So this is where a lot of conflicts come in. So therefore, considering everyone equally, okay, few things I know, few things you know, let us appreciate, let us share what each other know, and let us help. If we follow these teachings, the world will become a very good place to live in. But unfortunately, we don't do that much. Ribu also. So though these texts seem to be a bit philosophical, they talk about Atman, Brahman and so on, we have to always interpret saying that how I can relate it to my life. Now nobody today, now this doesn't mean that we don't know about Brahman, reality, Atma and so on. None of us were going to give up everything and go until the Samadhi stage, right? We have our own lives, normal lives. So then how far we can adapt the teachings and what has been mentioned, what we can learn through that in our own way, we should try to interpret. Lastly, Agni Purana talks about the reference of Gita, wherein it just highlights saying that Krishna taught the lessons of the Gita on the Kurukshetra, and the essence of Gita has been told in the Agni Purana, somewhat similar to this, where in the physical you need not cry. Arjuna feels bad, right, that he had to fight against his own relations, his own acharyas and so on. At that time, Krishna tells that physical body is temporary, their souls are not going to die, so don't mourn at all. So therefore, the Atman that is there, it is immortal, it is never going to die, don't worry. So therefore, don't shed tears, or so don't be addicted to sensual pleasures, otherwise ultimately it will bring about your own loss. So the entire Gita knowledge has been told by Krishna. Ultimately, Arjuna becomes ready, he gets an insight in life, what exactly he should do. and that's how the battle continues. So with the teachings of the Gita, the Agni Purana concludes. Okay. So the 9th chapter, 1.9.5, with this Agni Purana comes to an end that talks about the essence of the Gita. Okay. Next, we'll start with Vayu Purana next. Is Agni Purana clear? Was it good? Agni Purana? Yes.
Yes, Lakshmi.
Now, every day we are seeing a lot of Purana. Not every day. One fine day I'm going to ask all of you a lot of questions from these Puranas. Let me. Okay. So, the thing is, you see, when the Puranas are there, now when I tell you, it can happen even in my case. On a lighter note, I'm saying, now 1 hour all of us will listen. Now maybe what I told you at 9 o'clock, you would have forgotten. This happens in the case of Puranas. Reason being, you can say lot of information is being told, right? Still, I'm not telling you too much in detail. We are not reading the original scripture, only the gist I'm telling you. This also becomes difficult for us. So, therefore, the thing is, now this doesn't mean that, okay, then everything is waste. It's not like that. But then, the audios that are there, as and when you get time, you keep listening to that. Only when you listen to one particular thing 3 or 4 times, only then it will get registered. This is one reason, because there is, you can say, an overload of information. And secondly, maybe Srimad Bhagavata Puranam or Ramayana, Gita, Mahabharata, we are used to the story. We keep listening to that. Whereas Puranas also, we are not that much used to, right? So therefore, because we don't read, it's uncommon, it becomes difficult. So therefore, the thing that we can do is you keep listening to that again and again, as and when you get time. So maybe you're on a travel or so, you don't have anything to do, you have some time in the day, at that time you can listen. Okay. Now, Vayu Purana. Anyone knows another name for Vayu Purana? No? Shiva Purana.
Shiva.
Yes. Shiva Purana.
Shiva Purana.
Yes. Another name for Vayu Purana is Shiva Purana. Shiva Puranam Tamil is different. Shiva Purana Sanskrit, another name is Vayu Purana. So that's the reason why some people say that just to differentiate between the Shiva Puranam that is there in Tamil language and Shiva Purana in Sanskrit, the Shiva Purana of Sanskrit is called as Vayu Purana, which is ultimately nothing but Shiva Purana. Okay. But in some references, Vayu Purana is also mentioned as Shiva Purana, so don't get confused. Both are one and the same. Now, it seems that for a person, now Vayu Purana, firstly it states that in order to study the Puranas, we must one should always understand and appreciate the Vedas and Upanishads, it seems. Now what's the meaning of this? Now if you see the knowledge, first is Vedas, then you have the Vedangas, then you have the Itihasas, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and ultimately the Puranas. So you should always go step by step. Now I just came across, I don't know what are the Vedas, I don't know what is Ramayana, I don't know about Vedangas. Directly someone is telling me about Vayu Purana, I will go and sit and listen to that. This is, you can say, like, it is so simple as maybe a child is there, a child is going to school. Directly, no, I'll send my child to the 10th standard, let him give the board exams directly. It doesn't happen that way. The child has to start from the KG classes, ultimately the primary classes, secondary classes, and so on. So, step-by-step procedure that is mentioned. Same thing, the Vayu Purana also tells that in order to study the Puranas, you must have proper knowledge of the Vedas, Upanishads. You should be able to appreciate them, and then slowly you must move towards the Puranas. Now, with regards to the Vayu Purana, it is said that Vayu Purana roughly was recited during the times of Mahabharata, it seems. And it has been recited by Vayu Bhagavan, that's the reason why it is called Vayu Purana. Now, Vayu Purana first, now though it would have been there even earlier, the first time or when it was started being recited was during the Mahabharata times, that is after the Pandavas had won the Kurukshetra war, Yudhishthira was made the king. After the Yudhishthira, Parikshit was there, then who was Arjuna's grandson. Parikshit's son was Janamejaya, his son was Shatanika, Shatanika's son Ashwamedha Datta, and Ashwamedha's son was Adisimha Krishna. So Vayu Purana was recited during the times of the king who was ruling. His name was Adisimha Krishna, who is, you can say, the descendant of Yudhishthira, of the Pandavas. I repeat, Yudhishthira, Parikshit, Janamejaya, Shatanika, Ashwamedha Datta and Adisimha Krishna. So about 5-6 generations after Yudhishthira, after the Pandavas, there was a king Adisimha Krishna. At that time Vayu Purana was recited. Now Vayu Purana is roughly said to be having 24,000 shlokas. They are divided into two parts again, the Purva Bhaga, the initial part, and Uttara Bhaga, the later part. And it seems that there are about 112 chapters in the entire Vayu Purana. Then first prayer is made to Lord Narayana, Goddess Saraswati, also to sage Vedavyasa, Lord Shiva, Brahma and Vayu before this Purana is being started. So again, Romaharshana, as we know the story of Puranas, Romaharshana was a sage who tells the stories of all the Puranas to other sages assembled. He prays to these gods and goddesses and then he starts narrating the Vayu Purana. So this king Adisimha Krishna, alternatively is also called as Asimha Krishna. He was ruling the earth very nicely. He was a very good king, a very righteous king. And several sages did a lot of sacrifices on the banks of the sacred river. It is called Drishtadwati. It flows near the area of Kurukshetra, today's Haryana. And this sacrifice, it seems that it went for a very long time. The sages were performing. And at that time, Romaharshana comes here. And he was a disciple of Vedavyasa. He had learned Puranas. And that's how, near Kurukshetra, you have Romaharshana who tells all the Puranas to the sages. Now, further, how the story of Vayu Purana was being told, that we look. Now, Romaharshana, basically he comes there. Some references it is Roma, some references it is Loma. Okay, so all the assembled sages that tell Romaharshana that you have learned the Puranas and so on. It's a very auspicious occasion. You are doing a great sacrifice. So during this time, you have learned from the great Vedavyasa himself all the Puranas. So now the same Puranas you please narrate it to us. Romaharshana, he belonged to the Suta class. A Suta is nothing but a son of a Kshatriya, Suta, son of a Kshatriya mother. So that is Suta. So basically you can say looking after horses or maybe charioteers of kings. This was the main occupation of Sutas. And at the same time they used to sing the glories of kings and so on. And it is said that Sutas were born when King Prithu ruled over this earth. So therefore Romaharshana, he belonged to the Suta class and they used to also recite the stories of the Puranas. Now although it is stated that though Romaharshana was very well versed in the Vedas, Suta had no right to have the knowledge of the Vedas. It used to be said so. They could read the Puranas but not Vedas. But there are exceptions like Romaharshana, because he was a great scholar, he was well versed in the Vedas too. And he says that I am a Suta, therefore it is my duty to recite the Puranas. You have asked me to do my duty, all the sages you have told me, I will gladly accept your request and I will start telling you the Puranas. And he says that ancestors had a daughter. The ancestors or Pitrus, they had a daughter. Her name was Vasavi. She was cursed that she will be born as a fish. And this fish had a daughter. And this daughter was none but Satyavati, who later is the mother of Vedavyasa. Now, this name as Satyavati, this daughter's name is not mentioned in the Vayu Purana, but in other references like Mahabharata, it is mentioned, it is none but Satyavati. Great Vedavyasa was born as Satyavati's son. He learned the Vedas from the great sage Jatukarna. And the Mahabharata Puranas were also compiled by Vedavyasa. And Romaharshana says that I have learned the Puranas from Vedavyasa. There were many other sages in Naimisharanya. They requested the wind god Vayu to answer a few questions that they had. Vayu replies that the reply that he gives to all the questions, that's how the Vayu Purana was composed. Now Romaharshana says, I will recite the same Purana for all of you. This is the most sacred of all Puranas. It is full of wisdom. And with this he concludes. And the sages next they ask that what is the purpose? Why should you recite the Vayu Purana to us? And so on. We are not aware of it. We have never heard about it. So first you give us a brief. What exactly is Vayu Purana? You tell us, and then you continue with what Vayu told and so on. So Romaharshana said that Naimisharanya forest is in the banks of the river Gomti. That is, in today's times, if you see, it is in Uttar Pradesh, the state of Uttar Pradesh, and I think the district is called Sitapur. Sitapur is the name of the district also. It is in the state of Uttar Pradesh, where the river Gomti used to flow. There you have the Naimisharanya forest, where all the sages had assembled. And this is also the place where Sauti, he had recited to the Mahabharata to assemble sages. And at this time, what happens was, Pururava was a great king who was ruling the earth then. At that time, these sages had organized a sacrifice, and the chief priest was Brihaspati, the guru of the gods. And for about 12 long years, this ceremony, this sacrifice was going on. And at this time, Vayu Bhagavan, he chanted or he recited the Vayu Purana to all the assembled sages. Then, so this was the background of Vayu Purana. Then Lomaharshana starts reciting. First is the story of creation. I'm not repeating that, because the same thing we are seeing. Brahma had 4 faces. He comes out of the egg, golden egg, Swayambhuva. And then ultimately you have the story, the Kalpa, which is there. Then that's how the universe starts in. Then Kalpa, what exactly is Kalpa? Is one day, Brahma's one day is called a Kalpa. And at the end of every Kalpa, it's not exactly pralaya, but a minor destruction takes place. So this is what has been mentioned. So basically you can say that when Brahma, now Kalpa also is actually, it is a very long period of time. Just as we have 365 days or so, a Kalpa is equal to roughly about, you can say, 4 billion years. It can be even a few plus and minus years that is there, which is one day of Brahma. So just imagine. So at the end of every Kalpa, minor destruction takes place. A new day starts for Brahma. Again, creation starts. And this is how you have even Pralaya that takes place at the end of every Kalpa. And then again, creation starts. And when Vayu Purana was being told that at that time that Kalpa was called as Varaha Kalpa, then the sages ask a question that why this Kalpa is called Varaha Kalpa. Then Lomaharshana tells the story of Varaha Bhagavan. Varaha Avatara, Vishnu's Varaha Avatara, the form of a boar that is there. And then after the end of this Kalpa, a destruction takes place wherein Vishnu sleeps in the form of Yoga Nidra. Nara, water, Ayana is a resting place. So one who takes rest on water, Narayana. That's how Lord Vishnu gets his name of Narayana. Okay, so with this, let us stop here. Next, we will continue with Vayu Purana in the next class.